So much has happened and so much has passed. Your ancestor Eddie Van Halen has died. Your son has received a Grammy nomination. Have you ever wondered what really happens when two great people like Valerie Bertinelli and Eddie Van Halen, who have been dead for over 25 years, decide to compare themselves? They seemed like the perfect pal TV personality and rock legend. But their story was far more complicated. Now Valerie is finally telling the truth about why they broke up and how she found the strength to heal and move on. Be careful to hear the whole story. Golden Buddy's Ship. Valerie Bertinelli had a face that made people in America feel at home. In the 70s, she was more than just an actress. Every week she was the girl everyone invited into their rooms. Valerie was more of a friendly, pleasant, and kind girl who made people feel at ease as she played Barbara Cooper on popular television day after day. She had already won 2 Golden Globes by the time she was 20. Her career was closely scrutinized. She had the kind of steady success that most young artists only dream of. She became world famous. Now imagine someone like Valerie, who's stable, well-dressed, and looks good on TV, heading to Eddie Van Halen. Eddie was the exact opposite. By the time he was 26, he was more than just a guitarist. He became a star. Eddie set new rules for rock music as a collaborator and lead guitarist for Van Halen. No one had ever heard someone play guitar in such a unique way. It wasn't enough that albums like Van Halen, 1984, and Fair Warning sold millions of copies. They also completely changed what people thought musicians could do. Eddie was loud, fast, and full of energy. He was a manic, repulsive rock star. Their lives were so different from each other. Valeria's days were planned. She used careful sets and songs that she worked with. Eddie's life was full of parties, the stage shows at night, and the peace that comes with being a rock star. But in 1980, these two very different people somehow met. Because Valerie was so drawn to Eddie's energy, she invited her boss to organize a meeting. It was a time when the pure, good-natured world of television met the frenetic, chaotic world of rock. In November 1981, they died. Only a few months after the meeting, people were very interested in this party, as it was created in the name of the sunny heart of the country and its most electric rock clash. The difference between the clean TV star and the frenetic musician living life on the shore was often highlighted in the news. Their marriage wasn't just about two people who died. It was a story about two different types of people who loved each other. This captivated fans from both worlds. But beyond all the glitter and frenzy, the first few years were difficult. Valerie had to work long hours on stage back-to-back days, and Eddie had a lot of recording and traveling, which was very tiring. Valerie traveled back and forth very often, recording her parts during the day, then taking a short vacation to meet Eddie on the road. They were moving very fast, and it was difficult for them to find time for each other with their busy lives. There were more differences between their daily lives than just routines. For Eddie, life was all about parties, music, moving quickly, and without planning. Valerie, on the other hand, was more at risk. She was aligned with her parents' values and the world of television. The difference in their lives made it difficult for them to connect, even though they loved each other. Even as the good times, the success, the attention, and the excitement began to flow, the stress built up, albeit slowly. But Valerie's strength wasn't enough to reconnect with her two very different lives. She was a river in the middle of an explosion. Her relationship was jeopardized by the attention she'd been receiving. On paper, they were the perfect pair, but things weren't so easy for them in real life. People noticed they were different, but this difference also caused problems at home. Good things couldn't hide the fact that they were getting warm. They began to get warm due to the stress of their jobs, the different ways they dealt with art, and their own personal problems. To the outside world, they thought they were great, but in their own minds, they were anything but. Threats that slowly emerged began to unfold, explaining the problems that eventually caused them to heat up. What happened next wasn't just about life or the skies. There was something far more profound and sad. something Valerie spoke of many years later, which explained the secret struggles that truly put their marriage to the test. Warming up. Late after the freeze, Valerie and Eddie began to look less great. These warm-ups became deeper and darker. By the mid-1980s, Eddie began to fight a dangerous enemy, a playful substance. What might have started as an opportunity quickly turned into a massive problem that not only affected him, but also their entire relationship. Eddie's life has always been full of threatened substances and gods who created victories that were difficult. These threatened substances weren't just things that took away Valerie and Eddie's attention. They created walls that spread them even further apart. Sturm caught Valerie off guard, and she was caught in the middle of it. She wasn't just a popular rocker's wife. She was also a woman trying to hold her marriage together as she saw the man she loved become more and more praised. She helped Eddie after many attempts to stay cautious over the years. Sometimes he stayed clean, which gave them hope that things could improve. But then he shifted, returning them both to a cycle of pain and hatred. Valerie worked hard, not only to save her marriage, but also to save the man she loved. Eddie's condition worsened, just as his addiction worsened. When it was revealed that he had a monkey, his fans didn't realize how bad things had become for him. He had to have his tongue pulled out 30 times, which is difficult for any artist except one who sings and plays guitar. Yet Eddie continued to drink and drink, refusing to give in to the evil habita that were killing him. Valerie caused him to slowly kill himself. There was nothing she could do about it. Valerie was more than just a wife. She also cared for her husband. Managing her medical appointments, treatments, and growth became a normal part of her day. But even with all these responsibilities, her emotional world fell apart. Living with someone who was there physically, but not mentally, helped her cope with her feelings of loneliness and isolation. Dreaming is one thing, but feeling completely alone in your marriage is quite another. Valerie and Eddie, side by side, looked for peace in things other than their relationship. Their sexual responsibilities weren't just a way to have fun. These were signs that they felt deeply emotionally abandoned. Each tried to fill the hole that remained. But their attempts to escape only made things worse and further. Over the summer, Valerie told her husband that she had reached an understanding during one of the darkest times in their marriage. It wasn't a deliberate act of fear. She did it because she was grateful for the love and protection she couldn't find at home. It was clear that Valerie was feeling very sad. She had a problem with eating using food to cope with how she felt. After that, she assembled a truck that caused people and the tabloids to criticize her. This led to her being further excluded from the press. She was isolated from people and events. She remained in sad silence. It wasn't just about the changes in her body. It was also about women losing their power, suffering, and unhappiness. The fact that Valerie was struggling with her health at this point shows how costly inclination and socialization truly are. People watched the person on television, but there were struggles going on that no one saw. Her journey was about leaving behind lives and figuring out how to cope with a life that looked beautiful on the outside, but was shattered on the inside. Valerie tried to cling to hope even as her marriage vanished, but hope wasn't enough. Even when she was loved, it didn't protect her from loneliness or heartbreak. What remained was a complex abode of pain, protection, and strength. Her story wasn't just about cool or music. It was also about how inclination destroys people and how quiet desperation can be present in even the most vulnerable relationships. Valerie and Eddie were warming up a sad truth hidden by their own funk. No matter how much they warmed up, the story still wasn't over. The end of their marriage wouldn't be a public or loud event, but a quiet fact. But before this final chapter ended, she would soon recount times of brutal honesty and loss that revealed just how deep her clothes ran. Stay tuned, because next we'll talk about the peaceful agreement between Valerie and Eddie, which surprised no one, but left everyone wondering what really happened when the music stopped. Silent separation and divorce. There were already rumors in 2001, but it was still a surprise when it was recognized by the government. Valerie Bertinelli and Eddie Van Halen, who were popular Holstein Golden Girls, calmly explained their agreement after a 26-year dream. There was no public fight or drama when they explained their differences. Instead, there was a calm explanation that left fans and media eager to know more. There were no big news stories, and there were no questionable interviews. The audience was left to fill in the blanks about why they were splitting up. After the initial explanation for the split, there was almost no sound for 6 long years. Even when the split wasn't necessary until November 2007, the news didn't have much to explain at the time. Valerie became quiet, even though she was always seen as a stable and foreign partner. She didn't speak with explanations. There were no explanations or conversations where people recounted everything that had gone wrong. She decided to devote all her time to her son Wolfgang and to being a mother. She had only one task now: to protect her son from the chaos in the family. Not only did she protect her private life, but she also stayed so low. She also decided to start her own life. The media quickly arrived at their own conclusions, spreading rumors and creating stories. Some thought it was a typical Hollywood breakup, fueled by lies, while others said the screams had been there for years because of their different lifestyles. People were happy to fill the opportunity that silence created. Was it Eddie's crazy rock and roll life? Or was it something deeper, something private between them that they didn't want to talk about? The injustice of friends, and their choice to keep quiet about their breakup made things even more mystical. Of course, there was speculation mixed with puzzles. Fans who had seen them become famous together now watched everything they did as examples. Was every time they were seen in public a sign of trouble? Was there a chance for peace? The media loved to find out more, but Valerie wouldn't say anything. For years, it seemed as if the passengers had ceased to be known to anyone except their close friends and family. This silence only added to the story of why they broke up. Their marriage felt like something lost in time, a puzzle no one could explain. Fans wondered if they truly knew the passenger, or if the audience had always carefully assembled the image of Valeria and Eddie with a lie. Some people couldn't help but notice the difference between how they appeared as perfect passengers and how their marriage slowly deteriorated. But eventually, it would probably work out. That would leave Valeria almost 20 years to decide to speak out. She didn't just speak out because people were interested. It was part of a larger healing process. When she finally opened up in her books and appearances, it wasn't just about her marriage to Eddie. It wasn't about travel papers. It was about something much deeper, something she had lost. But even as Valerie spoke of the deeper reasons why they fell apart, the question remained: how was it that the beloved who seemed so perfect at first turned out to be so sad? Simply put, what did Valerie do to finally discover the truth? Stopping the engine. Valerie Bertinelli finally introduced people to her private life in 2008, when her book Losing It was published. She had been silent for years. It was the first time she'd spoken publicly about the real problems in her marriage to Eddie Van Halen. People and the media had expected for years that her struggle with drugs wasn't a short-lived phase, but a longer one, with low-grade alcohol and drugs altering the course of their relationship. Finally, Valerie was talking about her struggle with drugs. This wasn't just the crazy life of rockers. It was a powerful force that had left their marriage causing pain, confusion, and space. Valerie spoke about it as it was, unfiltered. She spoke of the highs and lows of liking someone who was both her partner and her enemy. Artistic, passionate, and deeply human, Eddie was loved. But the drugs that tried to take his life were hated. Her story is about how love, hate, hope, and hopelessness all intertwined. It showed the impossible balance she tried to maintain while following a man who was often lost in his own problems. It wasn't just Eddie who was fascinated by his habits. It reached out to Valeria, who, despite being deceased, felt mentally alone. In March, she felt lonely. because it was difficult for her to connect with someone who was difficult to reach. This loneliness wasn't just a lack of closeness. It was also a lack of love belief and emotional support. Valerie didn't try to hide the truth. She admitted that she had a point of comparison when her marriage fell apart. She did this not because she felt betrayed, but because she was careful to find the love and protection she lacked. Memoria showed a side of their marriage that was very different from the idea of them as a golden band that many people had. Instead of a moonlit romance, it was a story of pain, strength, and survival. Valeria didn't paint Eddie as the bad guy. She saw him as a brilliant man who struggled with problems he didn't fully understand or could overcome. It wasn't just about showing off his old wings. It was also about a better ending. Valerie was honest about how therapy saved her life, helping her work through complicated feelings about her marriage and substance use. She learned to live without the ghosts of her past, to become herself and accept herself. Losing wasn't just a memoir. It was a statement about survival and a reminder of how strong you have to be to face difficult situations. Valerie went into greater detail in her second book, Enough Already, which was published in 2022. This book made them think more about the perfect marriage they maintained for everyone else. Valerie spoke about how she idolized Eddie and their relationship holding on to false wounds. She said the truth was very different. They met when they were too young, too dangerous, and lacked the tools to cope with admiration, hatred, and loneliness. The buddy from the fake book turned into two people trying to stay alive in a dangerous world. The most shocking news came when Valerie told the audience in 2024 that Eddie wasn't her partner. This statement surprised many, but it resonated with those who knew that love isn't always what it seems. She said they had been tormenting each other for almost 20 years before they received proof. Her love for Eddie had changed over time, and she no longer loved the man who became Eddie. This comment ended the final illusion and showed them the emotional truth behind the long comparison. People were very surprised by Valeria's happiness. Many admired her for being strong enough to shed her silence and speak openly about her preoccupations, arguments, and mental health struggles, all things most people, especially celebrities, don't talk about. Others were displeased that she spoke about her own family problems and wondered if it was fair to talk about the past of someone who had already passed away. But Valerie wasn't afraid, and she continued to use her platform to tell the truth and give hope to people who suffer alone. When she told them, it changed history. Valerie stopped short of being the wife of Enough or the TV collaborator of Enough. She became a voice for empowerment and happiness. She showed that there's often pain behind a happy story, and that telling the truth isn't a sign of weakness, but of strength. Others were inspired to navigate their own struggles through her journey, which showed that it's possible to find peace even after years of darkness. A collaborator on the road, Valerie Bertinelli, and Eddie Van Halen maintained a special bond even after the explosion. They were still parents to their son, Wolfgang Van Halen. They went from being husband and wife to a different kind of family, one that was compatible with love, protection, and respect for their child. Family wasn't what it used to be, but it was still real and important. They made sure to be there for the most important events. Valerie and Eddie always appeared together not as a duo, but as Wolfgang's parents. This was true for birthdays, concerts, and events honoring Van Halen's life. They were calm and prayerful when they were in the audience, which showed they could still help each other in important ways, even if they didn't meet. It wasn't about drama or a news event. It was about family. This loving time lasted through the worst of times. Valerie was there for Eddie when his health began to deteriorate with his blood cancer. During his final days, she was with him, often standing behind his bed with their son. There was no camera or light, which was what it was. She posted a fitting tribute to Eddie on Instagram after his death in 2020. Her words conveyed a complex sadness that was a room for loving, losing, and reflecting. She thought about how her life had changed since they met, and again when she had to say goodbye. His post touched so many people and showed that she had been through a lot with them over the years, evoking both happiness and sadness. The collaboration with Eddie and Valerie grew into something more than just a collaboration. She remained connected throughout her life, and she was at peace with her family, her memories, and the pain she endured. They were no longer dead, but their son and the life they built together held them together. It's hard to understand this kind of connection, especially when there's so much pain in the past. But it shows that family can look like many different things. For them, love doesn't always end when they die. It changes form from time to time, finding new ways to live quietly beneath the surface. And for Valerie and Eddie, this quiet friendship helped them through their grief. What did Valerie do after Eddie's death? How did she survive when her life was so intertwined with someone else? In the next episode, we'll see her journey as she encounters new challenges and finds peace beyond the darkness of her past. New beginnings and challenges. When Valerie Bertinelli broke up with Eddie Van Halen, her life wasn't easy. It took her years to get through her first marriage and the sad process of challenges. She started a new chapter in her life with marriage only to find peace and happiness again. Tom Vitale is a business planner with whom Valerie passed away in 2011. After her first marriage ended, she was looking for a fresh start and a chance to build a community of growth and understanding. This second marriage was that chance. Everything looked good for a while. Valerie entered this relationship with skills she'd learned from her past: how to be patient, how to talk to people, and the importance of caring for them. They hoped that this marriage had restored the mental balance and mutual respect she'd previously struggled to find. But problems soon arose, even with this new perspective. Over time, it became clear that their own values and ways of life were different, creating issues that could not be fully resolved. The relationship was difficult to navigate due to the stresses of life and past mental errors. In 2021, Valerie made the difficult decision to take a formal break, saying she and her man were too different to connect. In 2022, the break was over another more painful but necessary point of return. Because of this, Valerie learned something very important. Loving isn't enough to fix everything. She said the reason she stayed in relationships longer than she should have was because she thought loving could get through anything. In that moment, she knew rest was needed for more than just loving. It needed happiness, self-sacrifice, and the strength to rest when needed. Then Valerie gave her full attention to her mental and social health. It took her a while to get through the years of pain, but going to therapy regularly helped her learn how to set limits. Therapy was crucial in helping her regain her sense of who she was as a person, not just as a wife and mother. Furthermore, she chose to stop drinking alcohol because she knew it was good for her health and mental focus. This promise was not only about getting better, but also about starting a new life with a foundation of self-sacrifice and respect. Valerie didn't just talk about her problems when no one else was around. She used her fame to talk openly about angioedema and panic attacks, which were issues she experienced herself. And she became an advocate for understanding mental health. In November 2024, she released a film about herself going through a very bad episode of angioedema to let others know they weren't alone in their struggles. Many people connected with her openness, making her an inspiring figure for those going through similar struggles. Valerie also had a brief encounter with singer Mike Gooden in 2024 before ending her relationship. People saw the beginning of their relationship on social media and saw it developing into a public romance as a sign of hope that Valerie would open her heart again. Fans were excited to see them together at the Emmy Awards because they wanted her to be happy. But in November of that same year, passion showed signs of developing. They said it was due to external pressures, not a lack of love. Everyone, Valerie and Mike, showed respect and gratitude for the time they spent together, which showed they were both mature in how they handled their own growth. Valerie constantly recalled the very important lesson she had learned. Solitude and freedom are the first steps to true empowerment. She was happy in this, having learned that she could never depend on other people to fulfill her emotions. Consequently, she focused on her own happiness and mental health because she knew no one else could fulfill hers. She thought about this long ago, when she was younger, and sought love to ease her pain. A look at Valeria's life reveals how strong and adaptable she is as she navigates new relationships, mental health challenges, and her own growth. For decades, she was closely scrutinized publicly and lost in private, but she decided to turn her life around on her own terms. Her story is about learning to be strong in her own right, finding peace within herself, and accepting the brilliance of life without doubt or fear. Today, Valerie Bertinelli is a woman who has embraced truth and authenticity like never before. After years of meeting her beloved older TV personality, she returned to television not only as an entertainer, but also as an advocate for life and mental health. Valerie now uses her platform to speak openly about emotional wellness, sharing her personal journey with happiness and empowerment. This shift from the traditional roles that once defined her marks a powerful transformation from actress to someone who encourages others to prioritize their mental and physical health. Thanks for watching. If you were inspired by Valeria's journey, please like, share, and subscribe for more true stories. Don't forget to click the next video when it appears on your screen. You won't want to miss it.